Wheel of Genre, this show for readers who've ever been in a situation where you hate someone's kid, but you just can't talk about it. Right now, we are reading every short story in Ann and Jeff VanderMeer's The Weird Anthology, including this one, Jerome Bixby's It's a Good Life. I'm Zach, and this week I'm really interested in the source material. I have seen this adapted and parodied so many times. The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode 2, I think, is what I'm probably most familiar with, more so than the Twilight Zone. And yeah, hot dog. This was good. This was fun.
I'm Bob, and yet, it's so scary. We've seen it parodied. We've seen the Twilight Zone episode. I think this might be one of the scariest stories in the anthology so far. I just found it terrifying. And I have so many questions I wrote down, and I don't think we can get through all of these questions. But this story was insane. There's so much fear the whole time for everyone involved.
Yeah, kind of unimaginable fear, right? Like, I can't tell if anyone has any relief from this fear at any point. And the slow reveal of the setting somehow makes it even more terrifying than the actual premise of it. I mean, the adaptations do a lot of work to explain what's going on, but in the story, we don't get a lot of explanations. We just know that you have the town or the neighborhood, and then a kind of abyss of nothingness dropping off on the edges of everything. Oh my God. It's crazy.
Horrifying. Getting buried out there in the cornfield just for listening to, You Are My Sunshine. You said that this could never happen. I want to come back to or it's an unimaginable fear. I want to come back to this because my question for you was, could this happen? I have a question for you, but I wanted to see, what do you know about Jerome Bixby? I don't know much except for he wrote this. It's later turned into a Twilight Zone episode. He wrote for movies, he wrote for TV, and he wrote for Star Trek.
Yeah. He created the Mirror Universe. Very fun. Are you familiar with the Mirror Universe?
No.
It's a recurring plot device where basically the Mirror Universe is an alternate dimension where everything is reversed as though you're looking in a mirror. So, the bad guys are now all very, very good.
Evil Riker.
Evil Riker, yes. And in order to distinguish, whenever Mirror Universe people come to, the non-Mirror Universe, in order to distinguish their character, they always have a beard or a goatee. Very fun.
That's
great.
I do know that, yes.
Great plot dynamic. And here's the source. My boy Jerome, I love him.
Big boy Bixby.
They say that every philosopher only gets one good idea that defines their career. And I think that we can safely say that this philosopher has two.
E-Day Fix, yes, he's got two. Wow, I thought this was absolutely great. And the writing is good throughout. You're just on the edge of your seat. That's the only way I can say it. You're just terrified along with these characters. And you said that this is unimaginable fear, but I do want to ask, could this happen? I know it's like a psychological, this boy has telepathy. He also can manifest things with his mind. He can create things with his mind. He can move people around and he can teleport. He seems to have limitless power, but his name is Anthony, by the way. But they've asked him to do nice things before. And when he does nice things, it's like going way too far, or he just wants to trick you. So whenever they try to use Anthony's powers for good, he gets too angry and he just buries you out in the cornfield. But it seems like a temptation to try and teach Anthony to do the right thing, or to try and control Anthony in a way, or to try and correct him. But anytime they try and wield this power or correct this power, it turns out fatal, usually for many people.
I mean, you could probably think of any number of situations where like the least qualified person in the room has all of the power, maybe The Office in its own way is a kind of rewriting of It's a Good Life. I don't know. I'll think on that a little bit more.
But do you think, could we eventually get to a technology that could do this? Anthony seems to be he listens in, he can hear very far away. And it's almost like if you put a desire out into, it's not even that he has to hear it, he can read your thoughts too. If you put a desire out there, something hears it and they can make it happen, that's quite scary, especially if you don't want it to happen, or especially if the outcome is not at all what you were thinking. It just has offended the listener. They have to constantly try and trick themselves out of feeling what they really feel. So not only do they say, shh, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that, they have to tell themselves, don't think that, don't think that, don't think that. And whenever they're together, if they're close enough to Anthony, everything has to be so orchestrated that if you step out of line a little bit, they are going to come and get you. There's no they, it's just Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you hear singing, he hates singing, and they have to play the music he likes. They have to turn on the television, which is just Anthony playing weird shadows on the television, but they all have to sit there and like it. And if you don't, you end up dead, and your family ends up dead, and you end up buried out in the cornfield. It's this cornfield is terrifying. I think, could we ever come to a technology that makes us that afraid?
Yeah, I think, if we were going to rewrite this as a science fiction story, I think it could have legs. I think that there's a lot of fun that could be had with a kind of, a person or being with vast technological superiority that can see and hear everything, and knows everything and is seemingly all powerful. Actually, this might be the plot of Three Body Problem now that I think about it, but that's on like a planetary scale, and I think that what makes this story so effective is the very interpersonal nature of it. The way that you feel these feelings on an individual level, the way that you feel their frustrations, when the guy just starts singing because he can't take it anymore and he wants the kid to end him, it's like you feel that with him.
He just wants to listen to You Are My Sunshine. It's the poor guy's birthday. He's had a few drinks, and he just wants to let loose a little bit. You do feel it, and you never really feel for Anthony. We see that he likes animals, and there's all these animals that gather in a pond. He wants to get into their thoughts, he says, and then he tries and provides the things that they want. But sometimes that just means like destroying, like obliterating this poor animal. But sometimes it's making a nice nest. I think it's very interesting. We're in the story for a birthday, right? It's just one event where we get to see kind of everything about this world because we're just let into little glimpses of terrible, terrible things that happen. For example, in this birthday party, the guy you mentioned, he wants to get his album. He's really excited, but they mention there's no other children here. You're thinking, okay, that's odd. Why is Anthony the only kid at the whole party? And they say, well, one time we allowed the children to get close to Anthony, and the children dared them to go and play with Anthony. And then that boy just ended up under the cornfield. So now all the children live in a house closest to this border of nothingness, as far as we can tell, whatever the hell it is. And they don't even know like what their fate is. It's almost like they could be alive. It's almost like they could be dead. They say when he's born, the doctor gets really upset, like, oh my God, we have to kill this thing. Then suddenly he disappears everything or kills everyone else and just preserves this one little farmland. If they go out far, it's just nothing. And they don't know, are they removed in a fake pocket universe, or has Anthony actually killed everyone else on Earth?
Yeah, there's a strong element of like it feels almost like a nuclear. What was that one book we read with the telepathic children? Chrysalids by John Wyndham, I think.
Oh yeah, John Wyndham.
Yeah. Where it's like you live in this small town, knowing that the world outside has been turned to glass by nuclear bombs. Aesthetically, it feels very similar. You're stuck in a place, you don't know what happened outside, and you're stuck, with something that makes being in that small town very, very uncomfortable for you, to put it lightly. But you mentioned thoughts before and animals. I thought that was the most interesting part of this. It's not an element that you see adapted, whether in The Simpsons, Johnny Bravo, or The Twilight Zone. I don't remember his relationship with animals being a part of those.
I feel like I remember the torture element of the animals, because at the very beginning he's forcing a rat to smell cheese, and the rat is like really excited because it's the best cheese it's ever smelled. And then he forces the rat to want to eat its own tail, and then he forces the rat to devour itself until it dies. I feel like that is really emphasized, and I agree. I don't think I've ever seen it portrayed, this quasi nice relationship with animals, or this like providing things for animals.
Yeah.
It's not really in there, but I think that's one of the most interesting things in this story too, because they say, okay, before we've asked him to, maybe make more gas for us, maybe help us with the crops more, maybe build hospitals, things we can actually use. When they tried to do that, it ended up with a whole, like, I think 2 or 3 households dying because he put them under the cornfield. I thought that was very interesting, how he is very powerful and he can do nice things and he has these nice relationships with these animals, but boy, does he not want to be told how to do those nice things.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought the Lenny from Of Mice and Men was probably the greatest comparison. He's always playing with that mouse. He loves that mouse, but by God, he's kills it every time. The way that he interacts with animals on here is super, super interesting, because I think that at first we're led to believe that it's out of malice. There's nothing darker than luring a rat out and then forcing it to eat itself. It's crazy work. But we get this insight into him where he talks about, he goes outside to nature and he likes it because what he's doing is he's building like perfect habitats for the animals. The spider thinks, I wish I could build a web right here. So he creates something that a spider can build a web from. Or, like all of these examples of him helping animals. And then it talks about a kind of ethical thing of like, one animal thinks that it wants to eat another animal. And then it's a question of like, well, do you save that animal who wants to be eaten, or do you help the predator to catch the prey? And he has this hierarchy of basically like, whoever's thoughts seem to be the most developed, those are the animals that he respects and helps the most. And to me, what that did was reframe the rat scenario, because he mentions that his mom doesn't like rats. So he's killing the rats because his mom's wishes and inclinations are anti-rat. So, on the outside, it looks horrible and disturbing and disgusting and sadistic, but maybe on the inside, it's just a little sweet. I'm not sure. It's probably still disgusting and sadistic.
Yeah, I think we could say that. I was really interested in this too. So they've tried to get him to do nice things, and then he seems to be doing something nice, but it's going way too far. And there's another scene where a boy wants to get home, so he's like, okay, I didn't want you to leave yet, but I sure will help you get home. And he just makes the bike go as fast as possible, so the kid's legs are going like this, and he just zooms away. But I wonder too, he seems to be, maybe he's indifferent, maybe he's malicious, but then he also seems to be very moral. When it's the one guy's birthday, he plays the album, and of course Anthony hates singing, and then he even sings happy birthday to himself, and it makes him even more upset, and he gets so annoyed that he just appears in the room, and what he does is he says, bad man. He is moral, he is the law, and everyone has to follow this law. It's not I'm angry, it's not I hate you, that's a bad man, he's broken the law, he's gone. But he also, to do it, he makes him so grotesque that it reminds everyone, okay, we will never do this again. It's described as, what does he say? It's something that they could never have conceived of ever existing. He just turns him into that. We don't even know what that is. But then he snaps his finger. Well, he just makes him go, again, buried deep under the cornfield. I feel like he's not indifferent. He's not malevolent, but he is the law somehow.
Yeah. It reminds me of... one time I was at a swimming pool, and there was this 3-year-old kid there who started shouting at some adults, and his dad was like, "Why are you shouting, son?" And the kid was like, "They're not wearing their life vests." And the dad was like, no, they don't have to wear the life vest. And the kid was like, "You told me everyone needed to wear a life vest. That's the rules. They have to follow the rules." When kids get this idea of this is the rule And now I'm following it. So now I'm going to enforce it and make sure everyone, but there's that mismatch between not recognizing that not all rules are for every single person, adults can go in the swimming pool without a life vest, that's kind of what's happening here on a very murderous scale, I think, in some like weird sense.
In a very murderous scale. And it's interesting too, because it's like its development is arrested, right? It's omnipresent. It's omniscient. It has everything. It can do anything. It has even removed them from the universe somehow, but it never actually develops or changes. It is that same impulse to say, they're not wearing the life as bad man, gone. I think it's a very terrifying way to live, obviously, but I wonder, like, what makes it weird in that way? So maybe it's a different universe. His powers are super weird, but what is it about living in this situation where you can never say what you want, you can never do what you want, you can't even listen to music that you want, and one person is always listening, always making you say, yes, this is good, that was a good decision, always fake smiling. They're described as always fake smiling and saying anything that's good, anything that's bad is good. Eventually, Anthony decides that he's going to kill all the crops at the very end. He gives them a winter, and they'll have to say, it's a good day, even though a third at least of the population will starve to death because of Anthony's whim. I wonder, what is weird about this?
To be honest, I don't know. And I think that this one kind of evades easy designation as being weird. But, I'm going to pull up the list that Ann and Jeff VanderMeer present at the introduction of this volume and maybe read some of them. And maybe together we can kind of like try to pinpoint exactly why we think this was included here. So we have, if it contains a supernatural element, but isn't exactly a traditional ghost story or gothic tale, I guess, this kind of mind reading is a supernatural element. If it depicts the search for some impossible to grasp reason or knowledge beyond the mundane world, I think that's a no. Evokes an atmosphere of dread, possibly. Shows a suspension of natural laws, Blends the strangely beautiful with terror, Seeks to understand beyond the limits of understanding, If it depicts a transformation or embodies a transformative literary form, If they become obsessed with a weird and unknown object, And lastly, if it doesn't rely on scares or twist endings, which I think, sure. So what are we left with here? I think maybe it's the supernatural element and the kind of pervasive sense of dread that isn't no twists, no jump scares, no buckets of blood.
I think it's the supernatural element that speaks to something very true. When we read The Summer People by Shirley Jackson, we were also kind of puzzled, like, okay, is it weird? It seems to be maybe their universe has become like a camera lens that is closing, or like a pupil closing, because they are being cast out of the rest of the universe. But then we also thought, okay, maybe it's weird because we're trying to pinpoint a real feeling that we can have, or some way we can experience it. But now it's not just a metaphor in supernatural, like a supernatural cloak. It's not just cloaked in supernatural metaphor, but it's like found by a supernatural story. And I wonder if this is found through the telling of this tale with Anthony. Earlier, you were talking about nuclear warfare, and thinking about the chrysalids, how they're living on after an apocalypse. But I wonder, is the fear of at any minute your leader or other leaders using nuclear arms to destroy the entire planet or destroy all humanity, that fear, is that similar to the fear of Anthony living under a very oppressive government that will not allow you to speak, not allow you to listen to "You Are My Sunshine," not even allow you to sing happy birthday to yourself? What is it like? And I think that Jerome Bixby has given us a very clear sense of how much you will have to lie all the time. Even you can't even think normally anymore. You have to distract yourself from your own thoughts in order to not be found out.
So what I'm hearing is we need to make a dystopian political fiction anthology and include this story in it. Thy will be done. Or
finally.
All right. Well, this was good. I think that maybe more so than reading more Bixby, I think I'm interested in seeing the sequel to the story that was made by the 2000 year 2000 Twilight Zone reboot. I think it's called It's a Good Life Again, or It's Still a Good Life, or something like that. But it picks up with the same characters like years later, of years of living in this hell. So I'd like to watch that. All right, I'll talk to you later, Bob.
Oh. I'll see you under the cornfield, Zach.
No.